Hey everyone, I'm Isaac and welcome back to Isaac Reviews 2025. And I'm already pretty sure I'm gonna be pissing some people off with this review regardless of what my opinion is. I already made a video about this particular subject a few weeks ago, but Disney's Snow White remake has easily become one of the most controversial films in recent memory. To summarize my main points in that video, while I wasn't excited for this movie, I think the hate it got before its release was a tiny bit extreme. Also, for the terminally online reactionary types who've been obsessively bullying and harassing Rachel Zegler for years on end for starring in a movie you weren't excited for, kindly go sit on a cactus. Have we as a society learned nothing from what happened to Jake Lloyd and Ahmed Best? So now that we're all caught up, things were looking really bad for Snow White, and part of me was expecting that to be reflected even after it came out since I thought it would get the Emoji Movie treatment with its critical reception. But then something unprecedented happened. Critics didn't seem to hate it that much. Like, don't get me wrong, the reviews were still not very good, and there was some pretty bad review bombing on sites like IMDb, but the overall consensus was that it was just not very good. That was definitely a surprise to me, although I already had a feeling it wouldn't be as bad as some people were making it out to be. The only way for me to know for sure was to bite the apple and give it a watch. And yeah, it sucked, but like, I've seen worse, okay? Basically, Snow White is the daughter of a benevolent king and queen, and things are going well for them until the evil queen usurps the throne and turns the kingdom into a totalitarian dictatorship, all in her quest to retain her status as the fairest of them all. But then, of course, Snow White overtakes that status, not just because the actress playing her is a damn baddie, but also because she's a generally nice person, and the queen doesn't really like that. So, one botched assassination attempt later, Snow White flees into the woods, meets the 7 sleep paralysis demons, and the prince who will go on to save her, and prepares to return to her kingdom and restore it to its former glory. Now, this might come as a shocker, but there were a few qualities this movie had going for it that I honestly thought were okay. And I can already hear you drawing your weapons, so try to hear me out. First, and no surprise here, Rachel Zegler's performance was definitely the highlight. And it's not just because I'm a notorious simp for her either, although I very much am, but she had a solid amount of passion, I enjoyed her chemistry with rookie actor Andrew Burnap, and she knocked it out of the park with her singing. On that note, the new songs for the film were alright, I guess. Nothing too memorable, and sometimes they can feel a bit similar to some of the songs Benj Pasek and Justin Paul have written for other movies, but they were fine on their own, and the score was pretty good too. Otherwise, while the Snow White remake might not be quite as bad as some of the other Disney remakes, it's still pretty bad, and nowhere is that more apparent than in the writing. It definitely seemed like a lot of executive interference happened behind the scenes as the script is clunkily written, it doesn't do a good job executing its new ideas, and the stuff from the animated film only feels like it was included to justify this being a Snow White remake. I wouldn't consider the changes it made the worst out of any of the remakes, and I think some of them could have worked had they been fleshed out more. Sadly, that wasn't the case in the end product, as what we got felt like a mishmash of ideas and creative visions that don't mesh well with each other at all. Also, to the surprise of literally no one, Gal Gadot's performance was really bad. I honestly don't know how she's been able to have such a successful career in Hollywood since she has the charisma of wet toilet paper, and that was no different here. Another thing that I'm sure no one will be surprised about is that this movie looks really bad. Well, for the most part, there was some really good production design and a few of the visuals looked kinda neat, but otherwise no bueno. Of course, the CGI on the 7 dwarves looks horrifying, and the woodland critters also fall squarely into the uncanny valley, which makes it all the more shocking that this movie had a budget of $270 million. That is more than Avatar, and it looks way worse. On top of that, the colors are either dull and lifeless or way too overly saturated, the cinematography is uninteresting, the editing sucks, and the costumes look like they came straight out of Spirit Halloween. Look, I wish I could have hated this movie as much as the rest of the internet has even before it came out, but at the end of the day, the Snow White remake is just kinda there. Rachel Zegler's performance may have been good and the new songs were okay, but it's still another Disney remake with ugly CGI and questionable creative decisions. Obviously, just stick with the original, and if you're really curious, wait for this one to come out on streaming. Regardless of how it performs, Disney's obviously not gonna learn their lesson and keep pumping out these remakes, especially now that other studios have started to hop on that bandwagon. But for Snow White, it's definitely a 4 out of 10 movie if I've ever seen one. Can't wait for them to remake it again in another 87 years. Next time, I'll be talking about The Alto Knights. You'd think this would have been a lot better seeing as how it's a gangster epic with Robert De Niro playing 2 different characters, but it was honestly a massive letdown. So if you're excited for that video and want to see more like this one, then be sure to subscribe to the Isaac Carthy channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.